Welcome to Leadership Lessons, where we don't just talk about leadership, we live it. I am your host, Dr. Fredrick D, and I am deeply honored to walk alongside you on this journey of purpose-driven leadership, emotional mastery, and unapologetic transformation. If this is your first time tuning in, I want to say thank you. You belong here. And if you have been with me since episode 1, I want to say welcome back. You're not just a listener now, you're family. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to take a moment to reflect on what we covered in episode 1, leading from within, the power of emotional intelligence. In that episode, we peeled back the layers of emotional intelligence, not as a trendy leadership term, but as a foundational tool transforming how we lead ourselves and others. We talked about what emotional intelligence is. It's the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions while also acknowledging and responding to the feelings of others with empathy and intention. And that's the key part. It has to be intentional. We explored the science, how the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex work together to help us move from reaction to reflection. We unpack the EQ framework with its 15 skills across 5 powerful areas. Those were self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal relationships, decision-making, and stress management. And we got real. I shared how most people, especially those high achievers, lead from pain, pressure, and performance instead of presence. And I told the truth that emotional intelligence isn't just for soft skills. It's for sustainable leadership, balance, and becoming whole. We closed the episode with a robust set of change moves, those 5 journaling practices that were designed to help you identify your emotional blind spots, help you identify, shifts in old habits, and to set a new intention for how you show up as a leader. There's that word again. It has to be intentional. If you haven't listened to episode 1 yet, I encourage you to pause, go back. That episode lays the emotional and psychological foundation for everything we explore today and beyond. Because today we are digging deeper. This episode is for people who feel like they're doing everything right, but don't feel like they belong. These are the ones who you walk into boardrooms, you walk into meetings, you walk into these spaces, and you bring your degrees, you bring your experience, you bring your excellence, but you still question your worth. This episode is for you. This episode is Imposter Syndrome and the Marginalized Leader, thriving in spaces not built for us. And I promise you, it's going to be deep. It's going to be real. And for many of us, it's going to be freeing. So let's get into it. That water is refreshing. I have had imposter syndrome. I have felt it strongly multiple times throughout my life. The first time I felt it was back in 2003. I had been a rad tech for, like a year, not even a year, like maybe 9 months. And I interviewed and got a job in the cardiac cath lab at Cedars. And I had only been a rad tech for, less than a year, like I said. So it was intimidating, right? To be in that space, to know I was skilled enough to be in that space, even with my short time of being licensed, and knowing that I was able to learn quickly and adapt to change. it was still, I still felt like I didn't belong here, right? Like as soon as I got there, I saw how the other techs worked, and I saw how quickly they knew what to do, and I just wasn't there yet. I was 22, 23. I was 23. Yeah, I was 23, a baby. And there was just this intense pressure that I felt at that time. I felt it again in 2007 when I got my first radiology supervisor job. You know, at that point I had been a rad tech for 5 years, and you know, I was good. I had you know, did the cath lab work. I did IR work. I was always in the OR. I was always in fluoroscopy, special procedures, doing something. And so then I get this job as a supervisor, and I'm barely 20, 27 years old, right? And I'm like, okay, how am I supposed to get these people to follow me, to do what I tell them to do what I need them to do? Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes back then, but the way I felt in that space was as if I did not belong, and I knew I did. I had earned it. I had a bachelor's degree. I was working on my master's degree. I met all the qualifications. So it wasn't any of that. It was just this deep-rooted feeling that this space was not made for me. And I wish someone had told me early on in my leadership journey that you are not an imposter. The system just wasn't built with you in mind. You know, let that sink in while I sip my water. If you've ever walked into a classroom, a conference room, you know, some sort of meeting where no one looked like you. If you've ever over-prepared just to feel barely qualified. If you've ever walked the tightrope between likable and being respected. If you've held your breath before speaking, if you've ever second-guessed your tone or shrank yourself to avoid making other people feel uncomfortable. If you've ever experienced any of that, then you know what I mean. See, you're not just navigating this job. You're navigating a system, a culture, a legacy. And that weight, that's not imposter syndrome. It's survival mode. Now don't get me wrong. Imposter syndrome is real. But what we call imposter syndrome is often just the emotional toll of being marginalized in a space that was never designed to support your brilliance. It comes from being evaluated by frameworks that don't reflect your story, your voice, your rhythm, or values. Now, here's where emotional intelligence becomes critical. Because emotional intelligence gives you a language and a lens through which you can see what's happening inside and around you. It helps you name the emotions that rise when you feel unseen and underestimated. It gives you the tools to respond to that pressure. Not with panic, but with presence. Emotional intelligence reminds you, I'm not overreacting. I'm emotionally aware. I'm not too sensitive. I'm attuned. I'm not an imposter. I'm navigating bias with courage and clarity. So if we go through the pillars of EQ, if you remember those from episode 1, self-awareness was the first pillar. And developing a strong self-awareness is what helps you to recognize when imposter syndrome is manifesting in your body, right? You're able to recognize those symptoms, the tension in your jaw, the shakiness in your voice, the voice that speaks in your head that's telling you that you don't belong here. Self-regulation, that's the pillar that helps you to pause, take a breath before you start spiraling, and it lets you move from reaction to reflection. And self-regard, which is lesser talked about, but it's a vital EQ, emotional intelligence trait. Self-regard is what teaches you to hold your value even when the room doesn't affirm it. You hold it, you affirm it, you know who you are and why you're in that space. That's why this conversation matters. Because we're not just talking about feeling better. We're talking about reclaiming our internal power in these environments that try to chip away at it, consciously or unconsciously. So today we're gonna bust it wide open. Bust it, bust it, bust it. I'm stupid. We're gonna name it, we're going to reframe it, and then we will create space to thrive, not just survive. We are no longer just getting by. So let's take a minute and define some things. And let's start with imposter syndrome. I realize I haven't explained what that phrase actually means. So imposter syndrome is the internal experience of believing you are not as competent, capable, or qualified as the others perceive you to be in whatever space. Most people feel it at work. Even when you have degrees, you have credentials, you have experience, you have certifications, you something in you starts telling you you're not good enough. You only got here because of luck. Ooh, you're only here because of affirmative action, or we had to lower the standards to increase diversity. That's why you're here. Eventually they're going to figure you out. You're a fraud. These feelings are not just self-doubt. It's self-doubt in the face of evidence that you're worthy. You've got the degrees. You put in the work. You have the experience. That's what makes this so mentally and emotionally draining. So as we go deeper, the term imposter phenomenon, okay, this was coined back in 1978 by a psychologist named Dr. Pauline Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imes. Their research focused on high-achieving women who, despite their accomplishments, struggled to internalize success. Now, their research didn't fully explore certain parts, and the part we have to name today is how race, gender, identity, sexuality, language, and class, how all of these identities deepen and distort the experience of imposter syndrome. Because for many of us, from marginalized communities, imposter syndrome isn't just internal. It's a logical response because it comes from systemic bias, cultural erasure, and generational messaging about who should hold positions of power. Now, I'll speak from my truth. As a gay black man navigating leadership spaces, especially predominantly white, heteronormative, corporate, and academic spaces, I've often felt the pressure to prove that I belong before I've even had a chance to speak. Before I open my mouth, I'm already calculating how I'll be perceived, whether my presence will be too much, if my tone will be misread, if my passion will be taken as aggression, if my calmness will be taken as a lack of interest or a lack of passion, right? You know, sometimes I feel like I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. If I say too much, then I'm taking up too much space and I'm being aggressive. If I don't say anything, then oh, you're disinterested. Like, damn, what you want me to do? It's difficult, and that's me speaking from my own personal experiences with imposter syndrome. I have coached people from various marginalized communities, brilliant, strategic, qualified people who show up every day balancing their excellence in one hand and survival in the other, right? A lot of times this is, and here at this organization, things get political. You have to make sure that you navigate the culture just right. That's part of this. That's what we're talking about. People often miss, when you're going through, and experiencing imposter syndrome on, individually, you often miss, you are not broken. The issue is not you. The system is biased. And imposter syndrome, it's not always a mindset issue. It's a trauma response to the experiences that you've had in the past, the gatekeeping, the microaggressions, the working twice as hard for half the recognition. It's all of that. This is where emotional intelligence becomes the armor that you put on, and it becomes your access point to begin healing from this. When you build your emotional intelligence, you learn to recognize the emotional flashpoints of imposter syndrome, those moments that trigger you. You start to understand those feelings, where they're coming from. You get to understand that the internalized messages versus external barriers. You start to regulate your response so that the fear doesn't drive your decisions. You begin to empathize with yourself in real time, not just with others. And you start to build the all-important self-regard. This is a deep internal knowing that your value is not up for debate. You've already proven yourself. You already earned the degree. If they don't understand what your degree means, that's on them, right? I'm navigating this space now at a new organization with people who report to me who don't understand, what a doctorate degree in education of organizational change and leadership means. It's foreign to them. Some of them have issue even calling me Dr. Lee. I mean, it's not for me to explain. It's not for me to explain to you why that matters. It's the system. And having emotional intelligence doesn't stop imposter syndrome from showing up. It does not stop these things from happening to you. It gives you the tools to interpret what's happening, challenge the narrative, and reconnect with your truth. And the truth is, you earned the right to be in this space. The goal is not to overcome imposter syndrome, like it's a character flaw, like there's something wrong with you. The goal is to understand it for what it is. It is a signal. It is a message. Speak, Lord. Speak to me. It's a moment for you to check in with yourself and say, I'm not unqualified. I'm just under affirmed in this environment. I'm not too much. I just internalized the limits placed on people like me. I don't need to shrink. I need to stay rooted in who I am. Their misunderstanding of you, your credentials, how you got here, that's on them. That has nothing to do with you. That's not for you to figure out. That's not for you to navigate. So if you're carrying imposter syndrome like a personal secret or shame, I need you to hear this. I need you to hear this. You are not alone. I cannot sing. You are not alone. You are not deficient. You are navigating a system that was not designed for your voice, but that needs it more than ever. You are of value. You are needed there. And emotional intelligence, that's your way of showing up fully, without apology or permission. Here's the hard part. The hard part is we internalize this. We take in the message, we take in the microaggression, the silent exclusions, and we turn them inward and we make it our problem. We don't name the system, we don't question the culture, we blame ourselves. It's because we've been socialized to survive, to adapt, to overachieve. We learn to do what high-functioning marginalized leaders do best. What do? You know what we do. We chase perfection. So no one has to question our place. I'm going to make this presentation so flawless, you ain't going to be able to say nothing to me. We bury our exhaustion so we're not seen as weak. We go in at 5 a.m. and we don't leave till 7. We go home, we stay up till 11 doing more emails. We're logging in on the weekends. We don't want to be seen as weak. We smile through the microaggressions. So we don't get labeled as, complex or defensive or, ooh, you're so sensitive, right? So we let them say what they say. Oh, you're so articulate. You went to USC? That stuff. We become the best, the brightest, the most put together versions of ourselves while parts of us stay hidden and untouched. And all of this is happening in the workplace, in institutions and industries that were never meant for us to feel safe, seen, or whole. We've become high achievers on paper, but emotionally undernourished in practice. We carry the weight of representation, the pressure of performance, and the fear of exposure all at once. All of the things. Carrying all of that creates a sense of hypervigilance, this constant scanning the room, the tone of the email, the facial expressions, trying to anticipate them. Self-silencing, you hold back. You hold back an idea, you hold back questions or feedback because I don't want to disrupt the norm. I don't want to rock the boat, right? That's not the culture here. It's too political for me to do that. Emotional suppression, because being too expressive might be labeled as unprofessional or unstable. Especially if you're Black. I'm just going to say it, especially if you're Black. A Black person expressing emotion in the workplace is going to be labeled as hostile, aggressive, all the things. He yelled at me. He raised his voice at me. Yeah, we cannot express passion. And then there's burnout. Burnout doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from feeling like we have to be too much just to be accepted. It's the emotional drain, the emotional burden that leads to burnout. And this is why we're not just discussing imposter syndrome as a mental hurdle. We're talking about it as a trauma-adapted response to navigating spaces that demand perfection but rarely offer protection. Here's where the shift begins. We are not here to keep shrinking ourselves to fit into outdated systems. We are here to disrupt the story. The story that says we must earn our humanity, prove our value, or perform to belong. We're not doing that no more. Because marginalized leaders don't need to shrink. We don't need to over-accommodate. We don't need to over-explain or overcompensate. We need to own our power, but not the performative kind, not the I have it all together kind. We need to own the kind of power that says, I trust myself. It says, I can feel everything and still lead. I'm not here to be palatable. I'm here to be present. And it's okay for me to take up space here. Because my voice matters, even if it makes you uncomfortable. I will not abandon myself to belong. I am no longer going to shrink myself in this space because you are not used to people like me performing at this level. That's on you. See, emotional intelligence becomes a form of resistance and liberation because it helps us get clear on what's ours to carry and what's projection from others. Your bias belongs to you, not me. You need to go deal with that. There is way too much information. There's way too much access to information today for you to still be this ignorant. This is willful ignorance on your part. I'm not here to educate you. Stay clear on what's yours to carry and what's projection from others. Emotional intelligence helps you stay regulated when your nervous systems are triggered. And you get triggered by, the bias, the comments, the dismissal that you're experiencing at work. You empathize without absorbing. You express without apology. You affirm your value internally before anyone else can diminish it. This isn't soft skill work. This is survival work. This is sustainability work. This is leadership rooted in wholeness. So today we are disrupting this pattern. We're naming the system, we're breaking the silence, and we're doing it together. No one should have to unlearn invisibility alone. Let's keep going. Here are 3 powerful change moves to help you interpret the imposter syndrome cycle and start leading from truth, not fear. These are not just journal prompts. These are practical, emotional anchors that were designed to help you practice to reconnect you to your value when your mind starts questioning your belonging, right? It helps you get back to understanding who you are. So the first one, change move number one, we want to reclaim your receipts. Reclaim your receipts. Start a file. Whether you print this or it's electronic, but you want to start keeping a folder where you have screenshots, you have emails, you have performance evaluations, you have thank you notes, you've gotten awards, you've gotten positive feedback from things, you've got voicemails, you do a transcript for a big win. You need to start saving that stuff, because imposter syndrome is going to thrive in an environment where there's an absence of internal evidence. When you don't emotionally register your wins, your brain defaults to its old script. And that voice comes back. You got lucky. They haven't figured you out yet. That was a fluke. You're the DEI hire. But see, when you keep your receipts and review them regularly, you give your nervous system proof of worth. It's not fabricated hype. It's not positive. It's not toxic positivity. It's being real. You have documented data that says you are not an accident. You are a pattern of impact. This practice builds self-regard, one of the core components of emotional intelligence. This is what strengthens the internal belief that one's value exists even when one's environment doesn't affirm it. I feel imposter syndrome as I do this podcast. That's why this is here. This is one of my receipts. This is my doctorate degree. I've already earned it. I don't care what other people have to say about not understanding, oh, well, it's an EDD versus a PhD. It's this, it's that. It's whatever it wants to be. It's whatever you want it to be. It's an accomplishment of mine. I do not need to explain that. That leads us to change move number 2. Deconstruct the lie. Ask yourself, where did I learn that I had to be twice as good to be seen as equal? Where did I get that from? Whose definition of professionalism or leadership am I trying to fulfill? What unspoken rules am I following that no longer serve me? Write that down. Start writing them down. Get curious, not judgmental. This works because imposter syndrome isn't rooted in the truth. It's rooted in those inherited survival skills, that generational, that cultural, systemic messaging that taught us our worth was conditional. These are rules like, be quiet to be safe. You have to overachieve to be accepted. Don't show emotion. It's not professional. Don't make mistakes. There's no room for error. That kind of stuff. These rules weren't born in your mind. They were downloaded into your nervous system by your lived experience. So deconstructing the lie helps you separate who you are from what you were taught you had to be. This practice activates your emotional self-awareness, that core EQ skill that helps you trace your patterns back to their original origin and begin responding from reflection, not reflex. Change move number 3. You want to find your mirror tribe. This is where you build a circle of people who reflect back to you your power when you forget it. These are mentors, these are friends, these are colleagues, these are people who say, you belong here. Not just because they let you in, but because you earned it. See, this is helpful because imposter syndrome isolates you. It tells you you're the only one who feels like a fraud. And when you don't see yourself reflected in the room, whether it be racially, culturally, spiritually, it reinforces the false belief that you're not supposed to be here. And we know that's not true. The truth is, you are not alone. And sometimes when you can't see your light, you need other people who will hold up a mirror and remind you, you didn't sneak in, you were sent for a reason. This builds that interpersonal EQ, helping you form meaningful relationships that create belonging and psychological safety. It helps counter the emotional erosion from code switching, from shrinking yourself, from self-silencing. You know, you have to remember, imposter syndrome doesn't disappear overnight. But following these change moves gives you the emotional tools to stop it from running your leadership story. Because you weren't made to perform your way into belonging. You were made to lead from wholeness. And wholeness begins when you reclaim your truth, rewrite your rules, and root yourself in community. You have to remember, you are not an imposter. You are a disruptor, a pioneer, a cycle breaker. You walk into rooms and you walk into spaces not built with you in mind, and don't shrink. You shift the atmosphere. You have to carry your wisdom, which is formed in complexity. You lead with both grit and grace. And that tension you feel, that's not proof that you're in the wrong place. That's confirmation that you were called to shift the culture, not just survive it. Today, we didn't just talk about imposter syndrome, we unraveled it. We named the external systems that plant internal doubt. We exposed how perfectionism, overfunctioning, and emotional suppression aren't personality traits, they're protective adaptations. And we use emotional intelligence as our framework for liberation. We went through the 3 change moves. Reclaim your receipts. Remind your nervous system of your worth. Deconstruct the lie. Challenge the rules you never consented to. And find your mirror tribe to stay rooted in belonging, even when the room doesn't reflect you. Here's what I want you to hold on to. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. And presence requires truth. So here's your coaching prompt for the week. What internal story are you ready to stop believing? And what truth will you speak over yourself instead? Let this be your check-in, your reset, your next brave step forward. If this episode resonated with you, share it. DM me, email me, send it to a person you love who might need these words too. Stay connected. Find me on social media. Send me an email. Go to the website. It's all in the profile. The next episode of Leadership Lessons, we're going to talk about leading without losing yourself, setting those emotional boundaries in your life, because empathy without boundaries leads to burnout. Next time, we'll explore how to protect your emotional energy while staying connected, effective, and human. Until then, remember this: change is constant, but your growth is intentional. I'm Dr. Fredrick Lee, and this has been your leadership lesson. I'll see you next time. Oh, look at that. The Lord done turned my water into wine. Hallelujah.